from the American Academy of Pediatrics.
Teens and tweens are very much into skincare these days. You might have seen their Get Ready With Me videos, you might have bumped into them at Ulta or Sephora, or you might have a tween or teen yourself who is charging the sub to your credit card. But what are they buying, and is it safe? I have just the person to tell us.
As the children go through puberty, their skin is going to get a little bit more active with respect to oil production, sebaceous gland activity. It starts to thicken up. But even young teens truly don't need anti-aging products. Like, your skin has the most collagen it's ever going to have at this age.
Right.
We can't really improve upon it at that point, you know?
Welcome to Healthy Children, the podcast for parents from the American Academy of Pediatrics. I'm Dr. Edith Bracho-Sanchez. I am a pediatrician and a mama figuring it out. This is a judgment-free space where all questions are good questions and the answers will hopefully be even better. Let's get started. Today we are talking skincare. We have with us Dr. Sheilagh Maguiness, who is a professor of dermatology at the University of Minnesota. Sheilagh, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Edith. This is such a fun topic to dive into.
I know, and we have so many questions. I have to tell you, Sheilagh, I definitely have bumped into tweens and teens at Sephora, and I have wanted to peek into their carts, but I have refrained. You actually have a sense of what they're buying, so please tell us, what are they buying?
So for all the listeners, if you've been paying attention, you are probably very aware of the growing skincare obsession with Gen Alpha. And it's tweens and teens, mostly girls right now, flocking to Sephora, buying expensive skincare, multi-step regimen, and really just kind of collecting all this skincare and using it maybe in ways that are not quite appropriate for their skin or their age. And yes, we have a sense of what's in the cart because there's some market research, having been done given this growing, booming business for skincare companies. Edith, did you know that households that have tweens or teens are outspending by 2 to 1 when it comes to skincare with households that don't have tweens and teens?
I did not know that.
So,
I did not know that.
Guess who's paying attention to this trend? The companies. Because it's such a growing business, right? And so there is a lot of potential pitfalls that we can see here with respect to, not only what the kids are buying and are these products appropriate for them, or are there pitfalls and can there be some harmful things? And then the issue of marketing, where your teen is the consumer and your teen becomes the target of really quite impressive and sometimes aggressive marketing strategies. So there's a lot to talk about.
Yeah. So is it makeup, Sheilagh? Is it like moisturizers? Is it like night creams? Like, what are they doing? What are they buying?
So I would say it's mostly skincare. It's the moisturizers, it's the treatments, toners, serums, acids, retinols, like the plethora across the gamut of trying to have really clear and youthful skin. But of course, these tweens and teens already have like really perfect youthful skin because many are prepubescent at this stage.
Yeah. And the unfortunate thing, of course, which is part of what we want to talk to you about, is that some of these things are very harmful. So not only are they not necessary, but they're harmful. So Sheilagh, tell us, what are the absolute no-nos, whether it's ingredients or categories of products that parents should make sure that their kids are not using?
I would say it's ingredients, honestly, Edith, because what we don't want and what is completely unnecessary is any 9 to 12-year-old needing or using a retinol. Unless prescribed by your doctor for something like acne or another concern, teens and tweens do not need to be using a retinol. Part of this is because, tween skin is just not the same as adult skin. It's not quite as active with respect to oil glands on the skin. It's not as thick, and it's more prone to skin barrier breakdown, irritation, and with repeated exposures of allergens, allergic contact dermatitis, which, by the way, is a lifelong condition. So when we're talking about ingredients, we want to think about those ingredients that really cause irritation to the skin barrier. Retinol is one. harsh acids, exfoliating acids, the AHA, the BHA. You can get these over the counter in very strong concentrations, which are not good for teens and tweens, because if you leave those acids on for, any length of time, you can really, really damage and compromise the skin barrier. And then you can get a rash, you can get skin barrier breakdown, the irritation, dryness, peeling. I mean, the teens are sort of creating a Pandora's box of new problems with all of this, but those are the ingredients and, a couple more that I would recommend parents really stay away from. Another category of ingredients that I think we should avoid for tweens and teens are the scrubs that contain beads or seed particles, because these can actually be quite abrasive and physically traumatize the skin, even causing micro tears and leading to skin barrier compromise. So this is another category that I would avoid.
Yeah, so you mentioned retinol, so you also mentioned acids, the AHAs, the BHAs, and you mentioned the 9 to 12-year-old category. Do these become a safer option once kids turn 13 and get into the official teenage years? Talk to us about that.
I think it's kind of puberty, right? So as the children go through puberty, their skin is going to get a little bit more active with respect to oil production, sebaceous gland activity. It starts to thicken up. But even young teens truly don't need anti-aging products. Like, your skin has the most collagen it's ever going to have at this age.
Right.
We can't really improve upon it at that point, So anything that you can do to kind of keep things simple and safe for kids by avoiding harsh things that can lead to irritant or allergic contact dermatitis would be a good thing.
Got it. Sheilagh, as you know, it can be hard to persuade a teen not to use a cream that is trending on their TikTok and that their friends are using. So how can we communicate the risk of some of these harsh chemicals and anti-aging treatments to them?
Funny that you say that, because from like a bigger community standpoint, there are certain states that are proposing legislation around this and maybe regulating these ingredients a little bit more. California has a bill actually proposing to ban some of these ingredients. Whether it will pass or not, I don't know. But from a regulatory standpoint, I think people are taking interest. As a mom, so I'm a mom of 2 tween boys right now, and I wish they were a little more interested in skincare than they are. But, I think there's just a lot of differences between what girls are being exposed to on social media in exactly what you said, the get ready with me videos, seeing their peers, seeing people using really expensive, trendy products. And when you're the mom and you need to decide, what am I going to say yes to? What am I going to say no to, right? We want those practical tips. And I think the things we can say yes to are a gentle cleanser. There are many fun, trendy brands in Sephora that actually, even though they're a little more expensive than the drugstore brands, and I'm not sure they're worth it, but if these are things you want to say yes to for a splurge, it would be a fragrance-free gentle cleanser. Many of the trending brands have one. It would be a fragrance-free moisturizer. Again, there are certain brands that are trending doing a great job with these kind of products. And then undoubtedly, you want to be saying a wholehearted yes to sunscreen, because it's not too early. In fact, it's never too early to really protect your skin barrier from the sun. And starting these kind of good hygiene habits early, I think, is actually a really good thing. But going too deep down and getting into products that are not age appropriate and not appropriate for skin type, that's where the pitfall is.
So I'm so glad you bring up what we are supposed to be doing. So just to take a step back about that good skincare routine, you mentioned a gentle cleanser, a moisturizer, the sunscreen. Tell us the order. I mean, I think it makes sense for people that first you wash your face, right? And you probably want to do that every morning, every night. And then what do you do? Do you do the sunscreen? Then do you do the moisturizer? What is the order here, Sheilagh? Help us out.
I would say that most teens might not need both products at once. So I would recommend at nighttime, when you remove your, if they're wearing makeup or just the dirt and debris from the day, having that gentle cleansing process followed by a moisturizer makes a lot of sense. And then in the morning, the SPF.
Got it. I love that. And what should be the SPF that we seek out in particular?
I mean, 30 or greater is perfect, but there are many great sunscreen options on the market. And I actually really like many of the SPF 50 sunscreens, actually. So if you can do 50, that's even better, but 30 or greater for the baseline.
I love that. 50 is what we buy at home. I'll be totally honest with you. Is there anything else that you'd look for in a sunscreen specifically, Sheilagh?
I mean, this is a topic on its own, Edith, because there are two types of sunscreens, right? There are the chemical sunscreens that have chemical filters, and you might see long names on the back of the tube of sunscreen under active ingredients, things like homosalate, avobenzone, oxybenzone. And these sunscreens are a little bit controversial right now because the FDA has moved away from them in terms of calling them generally safe and recommended. But any sunscreen is better than nothing. So the other type of sunscreen are the mineral sunscreens, the zinc oxide and the titanium dioxide, which are safe and recommended by the FDA. They are well established as being quite safe. They sit on the skin and reflect the UV rather than absorbing it like the chemical sunscreens. So they're actually a little less likely to cause irritation reactions themselves. So as a mom, and, as a pediatric dermatologist where I treat young infants, I always kind of gear more towards the mineral sunscreens because the safety and efficacy is very well proven. And that's not to say that any sunscreen is better than nothing, right? So if your kid prefers the cosmetic feel of a chemical sunscreen, which tend to be a little bit more elegant in their formulations, they truly do because they don't tend to leave that white cast, then they should use a chemical version.
Yeah, I have to tell you, my little guy has such sensitive skin, and we've done so well with the zinc oxide sunscreens, and it generally is what I recommend for my patients as well. But yes, totally. Any sunscreen is better than no sunscreen. So please.
Yes, but I agree with the zinc oxide. You really can't go wrong. So taking the guesswork out for parents, it really is the safest option.
Yeah, I love that. Sheilagh, I have to ask you about the DIY culture. Because I know. I figured you might have that reaction. So I searched the hashtag homemade skincare on Instagram before jumping on this recording with you, and all kinds of things came up. Homemade face wash, moisturizer, toner, sunscreen, the list goes on. So what should we watch out for here? Are there safe ways to go about it? What's your general take on this?
Oh, gosh, I guess, it really depends on what you're trying to achieve with the DIY product, right? So I'm going to say absolutely not to any DIY sunscreen because there is safety testing, shelf stability testing, preservative efficacy testing, all of these things that go into formulating an effective product. So that's not something that people can really honestly do at home in a home environment. And so rather than risking a severe sunburn with a DIY type of sunscreen, I would say, please that's really not, a great use of time or resources. As you know, Edith, right now, there really is a trend towards people wanting to do things that are so-called quote unquote natural, right? And I think that's where this DIY culture springs from. And we all have to remember that natural, when it comes to skincare, is not always better.
Right.
And the reason for this is that, when we think of what's truly natural, well, plant extracts, botanical extracts, essential oils, all of those things are truly natural. But so is poison ivy. And in all those categories I mentioned, we really have to be thinking twice before we're rubbing natural, botanical, concentrated ingredients onto the skin. I think sometimes what people don't realize is that when you repeatedly expose the skin to a potential allergen, say like an essential oil, you can then become allergic, and it takes time to develop that allergy. But once it's there and you're allergic to, say, something like lavender or lavender components, that's a lifelong allergy, and you have to avoid that and its cross-reactants for the rest of our lives. And Edith, I don't think it's going to surprise you at all when I tell you that the fastest rising contact allergen in children under 5, guess what it is?
I don't know.
Lavender and components to lavender. Because we have lavender in literally every baby moisturizer, product, wash, everything. We really need to stop exposing these kids to all these fragrances and essential oils when their skin is so young and so thin and so prone to us potentially causing a problem in the future. So with respect to fragrance in baby care, it's time that we as pediatricians and parents rethink this because it really isn't for the baby, the lavender scent. It's for the parents.
Sheilagh, that is so interesting. First of all, I'm going to use your analogy in my practice, right? All these things are natural, but so is poison ivy. I'm going to steal that line because it's so true and it drives it home, right? I have to tell you, I have avoided lavender products in my own home based on some early studies and trends that I've seen out there, but I haven't really felt as a pediatrician like I was ready to make the recommendation for parents to avoid lavender. Do you think we're there from your perspective as a dermatologist?
I do. I do.
Wow.
I mean, I think that contact allergies are very serious and they can be really debilitating for those who struggle. And we have to remember that the lavender smell has nothing to do with babies' calming and relaxation. There's actually no clinical data that proves that that is true. The lavender smell is like what moms are used to, what we've been marketed to, enjoy, that kind of thing. So I personally believe we're there. It's time for change. And I think looking at fragrance-free options for babies and toddlers especially is really, really important.
Yeah. See, not necessarily what we came to talk about today, but such an interesting tidbit of information.
Oh, we got off topic, Edith. Oh, no.
We really did, but I want to know these things, right? I want to know these things, and I don't always get, the opportunity to hop on a call with a pediatric dermatologist, so this is such a joy. Sheilagh, as we come to the end of our episode, we like to end our show with what we call a parenting prescription. So when it comes to skincare, what is a skincare habit that you wish every tween would start right now?
Oh, it's going to be sunscreen. Honestly, that's what it's going to be. So I love the idea of teens and tweens taking an interest in their skin health and self-care. That on the surface is great, right? And so what does that look like in a safe environment? Well, that looks like, washing your face. That looks like maybe using a moisturizer, but it definitely looks like protecting yourself from the UV rays with a broad spectrum sunscreen, preferably minerable, one that's fragrance free and won't cause irritation. But that would be the number one habit that I think every tweener teen should start adopting and that we can, as parents, say yes to.
Yeah, love it. I'll always take something I can say yes to. Thank you so much, Dr. Sheilagh Maguiness, for joining us today. This was so much fun.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you at home for joining us as well. If you like the Healthy Children podcast, please subscribe on your favorite podcast app and help us spread the word. Follow Healthy Children on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and Threads at Healthy Children AAP, and be sure to visit healthychildren.org, the parenting website of the American Academy of Pediatrics. Healthy Children is a production of the American Academy of Pediatrics. Our creative team includes
Laura Alessio,
Catherine Beard,
Garrett Brown,
Zach Christman,
Ann Johnsos, Kathy Jewell,
Claire Keating,
Doug Nagel,
Jackie Ortega,
Susan Stevens-Martin,
Mary Claire Walsh,
Hannah Weston.
And our theme music was composed by Doug Nagel. We'll be back next week. I'm Dr. Edith Bracho-Sanchez. Thanks for listening.